What's up, everybody? It is Moose, Boyle, and Garrett here from OccupyFantasy.com at Occupy Fantasy on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and what you see now, YouTube. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that like, follow, and subscribe button. Hit the bell to be notified of when we upload some new videos or go live like this. Again, I'm the host, Moose, at CFB_Moose on Twitter. At the left of your screen, we have Boyle at tboyle24_DFS on Twitter. How are you today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I just got out of work and I'm ready to break down the slate.
Nice. That's always fun, just getting off work. And at the top right of your screen, we have Garrett at gstroms99 on Twitter. How are you today, buddy?
Be good, man. Always exciting to do some NBA DFS before I have to go off to class for an hour. So the fun in now.
And by going to class, you mean sweating your DFS lineups in class?
Yeah, basically just the professor talking in the background and then me using my monitor to make my DraftKings lineups. Basically that.
Hey, works for me. Hey, whatever works for you, right? So
Absolutely.
What's up, man? So what's up, everybody in the chat? So you have Eagles, Ken, Chris, T Nasty, Nick. What's up, everybody? Cool. So let's jump into it. Which we have on screen here is the Occupy Fantasy Daily Plug that you can get at OccupyFantasy.com with a membership. Starting off at like $7 a week. Always a pretty good deal on that. But you can upgrade and get it cheaper if you go yearly. Also have the lineup builder that we might be able to showcase as well going forward. So let's jump into it. I know, like we did last time, Boyle, we'd like to talk about some of the injury situations. And if we scroll down here in the Daily Plug, we'll talk about the if-then section. There's actually quite a bit. Granted, some of them have already been determined. But let's talk about, for example, the one that I like to talk about is the Rocket situation. So let's talk about the Rocket situation with Depot and Gordon questionable.
Yeah, so I mean, this one's not as big just because Depot and Gordon been out for a little bit. But if they both sit, Wall becomes a top elite option. We still like Murray over Wall, but if you're going high risk, I mean, that's a pretty good swap, I would think. If you want to maybe get over the field on Wall, you can go under the field on Murray. But again, that's only in high risk. Wall averages usage rate of 39% in this situation, 1.28 DraftKings points per minute. And then Nwaba would also see a pretty big boost. He's been averaging over 32 fantasy points, or I should say FanDuel points, in the last 4 games without Depot now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's definitely some options there. Now, which one of these if-then sections, you said the Rockets wasn't necessarily the biggest one, but of these remaining ones, which one do you think is the biggest?
I guess it would be John Collins. I don't know. The big one before was definitely Aldridge, but we know he's playing now. I guess with Collins, it just opens up another option in Gallinari, just because even though Gallinari played like, I guess he played like shit last night. I'll just say it.
Yeah, you can say it.
Yeah, well, he played terribly. Shot 1 for 7 from the field, but he did see minutes for Collins. So we do like him tonight as a cheaper option. And then Trae Young just averages a monster usage rate without Collins in the game. Things like 37%. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest one that we're looking at left for tonight at least.
Yeah, and as you point out here, he would be a low-risk elite option tonight, speaking of Trae Young. And Garrett, I'll bring you in on this one. Speaking of low risk, I know the plug's written for low risk. And as you talk about with Trae Young as a usage rate, basically it's going to be 37% if that goes through. Minutes and usage is probably one of the best things you can do to build low risk lineups. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in NBA DFS, one of the main things you're looking for from your players is the minutes. I mean, more minutes equals more opportunities. That's what we always say. Especially for a player like Trae Young, who's going to handle the ball, and he's a double threat every night for scoring and assists. So for a player like that, that's really all you're looking for.
Nice. And I'll just follow back up. We talk about minutes. If you're someone who's, if you're using the lineup builder to build a single entry lineup, maybe a 3-entry lineup, would you say what would you filter the minutes as? Would you say for low risk? You can answer for low risk and for high risk. Would you say something like no players under 20 minutes in a low risk lineup? Do you think that's a good rule to have?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, any player that's seeing under 20 minutes really doesn't have that kind of upside anymore, unless it's like Boban Marjanovic. But I mean, that's in an ultimate high risk situation. But yeah, anything under 20 minutes is really just way too far off for me to go to.
Totally understand that. And as Chris points out, more minutes equals more opportunities. Unless you're Aaron Smith and has 0 shot attempts last night in 22 minutes.
Or Tony Snell.
Yeah, that's always a fun meme to put out. Cool. So, Boyle, I'll bring you back in, and let's talk about the other one that kind of sticks out here. If Gordon Hayward's out, play Ball, Rozier, Bridges, or McDaniel. So, kind of talk about that situation because that is a lot of different ways that you could go.
So I think this was updated. I was in work. I didn't get a chance to update the plug, but I think Hayward's probable now.
Yeah, he is.
He is, yeah. So this one we can pretty much count out because normally if a player is probable, he's gonna play.
Okay.
So I mean, I could still go over it, but I mean, I don't know if there's a real case to try to persuade people to play the other players here.
Yeah, I mean, if he's probable, then no need to talk about the other thing. So that'll pretty much do it for the if-then section. Again, you can read it full in detail and gets updated at OccupyFantasy.com. Boyle and Garrett do a great job writing that. We're going to be here for about 30 minutes in total, so about 5:45. So if you have any questions, definitely go ahead and ask. Interrupt us. If you just want to ask us how our day's doing, you can do that as well. Nick says, what Spurs are y'all prioritizing tonight, specifically for FanDuel GPPs? Just play Murray or jam in Murray, Walker, and Mills in the same lineup. Personally, I'm prioritizing Murray and moving on. What are your thoughts? I'll pass that to you, Garrett.
For me, my priorities are Murray and Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walk, like we said, they only have 4 guards in the. They only have 4 actual guards. So for them, that's really all they can use is Lonnie Walker, Murray, Mills, and Trey Jones at guard. So I personally want at least 2 of those in there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Do you have any difference of opinions with that, Boyle?
No, I mean, if I'm playing cash, which I mean normally I'm a low risk player anyway. I am gonna see if I can get Mills in there. So I'm probably gonna end up running, at least on FanDuel, because that's what I've been playing lately. I'm probably gonna end up running 2 Spurs point guards and a Spurs shooting guard.
Okay.
So I mean, right off the bat, I'm gonna have 3 Spurs in my lineup.
That's probably the same with me too.
Yeah. So this actually brings up a good point. A bunch of different Spurs in the lineup. I'll ask whoever wants to take the question, or you guys can chalk it up. But how many Spurs would be too many in one lineup, and let's say a low risk contest?
For me, I would probably just go. I think my max is 4. I've made a few lineups with 4 Spurs that I feel really good about, so that's kind of my limit there. And I think at least on FanDuel, that's the max you can have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you would you potentially go to the max on that. Okay,
Yeah.
It's always a good thing because a lot of people ask that question. Not saying it's a bad question, but it is a question that comes up.
It's a good question.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good question to ask. No dumb questions. Cool. So I asked Garrett this question yesterday, but I'm actually going to switch it up over to Boyle. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Occupy model here, and we're going to talk about some low-owned guys that you think, if I can get to the model here. We'll start off with I think I asked you the lowest. So Boyle, let's ask your opinion. I got the NBA model up here. We sort by DraftKings ownership, and of course the Spurs are going to be ridiculously high owned, but maybe some of these other players that are highly owned. What are your thoughts on that? Is there anyone that you're saying these people are way too high owned, I gotta fade them, or I'm matching the field on? What's your thoughts on some of these people that are projected to be 20, 30, 40% owned?
So we're sorting by DraftKings ownership, right? I'm just doing it on my end, so.
Yep.
So DraftKings ownership. Okay, yeah. So I mean, looking at the top 5, I don't know what's gonna happen with Trey Lyles yet, just because I know Aldridge is playing, so I'm not sure if Lyles is going to get a start. So I mean, he might be a little bit high on my radar at 36%. But I mean, besides him, I mean, Mills, he's gonna be very high owned. Walker high owned, Murray high owned, Saban Lee on DraftKings especially high owned. All that value definitely allows you to fit in LeBron. So, I mean, I'm looking at the top, 5 or 6 guys right now, and I mean, for the most part, the ownership's right on where I think it's going to be.
Yeah, and so like of these players, if you had to pick one, which one would you go over the field on?
I guess Murray at 31%. I want more than 31% of Murray.
Nice. Garrett, do you have any opinion on who you would want? Do you think that you would want more than what their projected ownership is?
I think more. I'd probably even at 33%, I'd want more Lonnie Walker. A lot of that Spurs value I'd probably go over on just because even though it's going to be such big chalk, there's a reason for it. I mean, they only have 10 active players, and 2 of them I don't think have played actual minutes in the NBA. So really, they have 8 NBA players on their team right now.
That's not a good thing, right?
It's not the best, Sometimes you want a little bit more than that.
Yeah, you would think so sometimes. But cool. Yeah. So I'm curious for people here that are watching in chat. Do you have any different opinions? The people that are highly owned, is there anyone that you're saying, oh, no, I'm not going these high, go imagine the field on this. I'm going under on these guys. For example, Saban Lee. Are you guys going to be over or under him if you're playing him in high risk contests? Cool. And then, yeah, if we switch it back to the other side, I'm going to filter out, like we talked, you and I, Garrett, you and I were talking about. We just filter out, 20 minutes or so, and we'll sort by DraftKings ownership. Let's say these like 3, 4, 5% guys is a lot of them. But are there any of those people in that 5 to 10% range, maybe around that range that that you think, all right, I'm gonna get higher owned than this guy?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite plays on the night, for pivoting off of Jared Allen at center is Clint Capella. He's absolutely killed Boston this season. I think in the 2 games that he's played Boston, he's had over 40 DraftKings points in both games. I think he averages like 50 DraftKings points against Boston actually, because they play so big. The Hawks need to play Clint Capella basically as much as they can.
Cool. And then again, I'll just ask the same one to you, Boyle. One of those guys in that 5 to 10% range that you're definitely being over on.
In the 5 to 10, can I go lower than that?
Yeah, yeah, you can go. Yeah, if you want to go lower than that, you can go lower too.
Yeah, I mean, I see Cat at 0%. Well, I see him at 12 on FanDuel with 0 on DK. But as G was just talking about, his pivot off of Allen was Capella. My pivot's going to be Cat. I like his matchup against Chicago a lot tonight.
Okay.
So, and I still think he's underpriced at where he should be because, I mean, beginning of the year, Cat was priced at like 10.5 or so, and he's still coming back from COVID, but he's still priced at like 9. I think he's 9.7 on both websites. So,
okay.
He's probably my pivot off of Jared Allen tonight.
Okay, cool. I dig that. I'm actually gonna go back to the model, and I'm just gonna refresh all the settings. Nick says that he's going to be under on LeBron. And Garrett, I'll bring you in on this one. Is, with so much value and cheap players on the slate that we saw, for example, with the Spurs, how difficult is it to fade someone like, or maybe be under on LeBron when there's so much value on the slate, or any stud? Because, just sorting by, top DK salary, LeBron is the most expensive player on the slate, but there's also a bunch of low price guys. So how would you potentially build a lineup where you're under on LeBron, or if you wanted to fade some of these top high price guys?
I mean, the easy way would be just pivoting to another expensive player like Sabonis or Curry. But if you're fading a lot of the high price guys, I mean, you could still have the value in there. But you just might need to pivot a little bit, get a few more like higher mid-price players in there, maybe pivot off one of the values. Because in NBA, you really don't want to leave too much on the table in terms of salary.
Yeah.
You want to leave usually max 500 to 700 left on the table for NBA DFS. You're never going to see an over 1,000 salary leftover lineup win a GPP or anything like that. So it just depends on how much value I guess you're playing, because if you're playing a lot of that Spurs value, LeBron's very easy to reach.
Yep, exactly. And he says he actually likes who was it? It was a Cat and Levine mini stack. So yeah, you can't go wrong with that. That's always a good thing. So definitely cool on that. Ken has a question here that I asked to you, Boyle. So what do you guys think about the season so far? Do you have any playoff predictions?
I like my Sixers, but and then I also like the Nets. That's a direct ad at Garrett. I know we got fired up last year, pretty big time. We got fired up about how the Nets were going to bounce back, but yeah. So that's looking pretty good for me. But yeah. So playoff predictions. I mean, as of right now, there's a lot of teams that are good that I feel like are going to end up in the playoffs, like that aren't in it as of right now. I know like the Raptors started off really slow, the Heat started off really slow, but I didn't realize like how long the second half of the season was going to be. I didn't know if they're going to shorten it due to COVID or whatnot, but they released the schedule today, and it's a full schedule. So I mean, I definitely think those teams that are like on the bubble of being in, or I guess playing way under their potential, I really think that those teams are going to end up figuring it out and getting in.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris with the shot says death taxes and the Sixers not winning the finals. So glad I'm a Wizards fan who they don't even make the playoffs. So I just know I know the season's over the first day. So oh well, whatever. Cool. So
if I can step in, Moose.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jeremy Grant was just ruled out for he's taking the night off. I guess he likes to rest. So that's a pretty big piece of news for the Pistons tonight.
Okay, so let's break it down. So he's out. He's not playing. So who gets the biggest bump? How are we adjusting to that?
Well, if we look at the Pistons, we look at their big men. Griffin's no longer playing for them while they find a suitor for him to either go to or for them to figure out a buyout. They don't have Grant and they don't have Okafor. So in their big men, it really leaves them with Sadiq Bey, Sekou Doumbouya, Mason Plumlee, and Isaiah Stewart. I would probably say the biggest bumps. Josh Jackson honestly probably sees a nice bump. He might start at the small forward spot tonight, and then Sadiq Bey probably gets a little bit more usage and stuff, and probably more big men minutes tonight. So I like Sadiq Bey a little bit more, and I definitely like Josh Jackson more.
Okay, cool. And Boyle, you pretty much agree with that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I pulled up the usage rates with Grant off the floor this year, and Josh Jackson is the heaviest with almost 30% usage, 1.13 DraftKings points per minute. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else relatively close. Mason Plumlee's got a lower usage rate, but 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. He would be a center option. We still prefer Allen, but I mean, if you have to pay down a little bit, I guess you can go down to Plumlee. That's not too bad of a number to be having at his price. So yeah, I mean, mostly just agree with Garrett.
Cool, awesome. Cool. So we talked about some low-owned guys. We talked about some high-owned guys. Around that, Garrett, let's talk about one of the players or one of the positions that you wrote up in the plug. Give the girls a little taste of the plug. So what position do you want to talk about?
For sure. I feel like we already went over the kind of the guard spots plenty. I mean, we can go over small forwards too. Jeremy Grant's out now; he's a small forward, so let's go with that.
Yeah. So again, you put for your elite position or elite pick, you put LeBron James. Mid, you put Justin Holiday. If you want to just take a couple minutes and spit some knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, LeBron was a really easy pick. You know, he's without AD, he's without Dennis Schroeder. You know, it's a big matchup against the Jazz. It might be a playoff matchup, a preview of the Western Conference Finals, possibly, because the Jazz right now are the number one seed in the West, are on probably one of the best runs that a team could be on. So he has something to prove tonight, and you know, he's in a high-scoring game. So I think as long as this game stays close, LeBron will be all over it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my view. I think the rest of the field will also be really high on LeBron as well, especially with so much value. And then Justin Holiday, honestly, was kind of a filler this morning. We kind of assumed there would be a lot of small forwards opening up in the if-then section, and none of the ones who were not a part of that really stood out to me. So instead of talking about him, David Nwaba, if Eric Gordon and Victor Oladipo are out, I definitely like David Nwaba a lot for that mid-range over Justin Holiday. And I like Jaylen Brown a lot with no Kemba Walker. We talk about them in the if-then section a little bit more. But if you can get up and do a Jaylen Brown, LeBron James combo, that's definitely a good, a nice low-risk build right there. David Nwaba is a little bit riskier of a play, but he's also has really high upside that we've seen without Oladipo.
Cool. Makes sense. And cool. So yes, that'll pretty much wrap up small forwards. I mean, like you said, LeBron is always a pretty good spot. You can never go wrong with LeBron when AD is out. So yeah, that's good. I'll kick it over to you, Boyle. What position do you want to talk about? I know you like to talk about centers. You want to do that?
I feel like we talked about centers a little bit already with like Allen and Cat and Capella. Do you want to go to power forwards?
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned for your mid, Jay Crowder, and value, PJ Tucker, and some other options, Jason Tate, Kyle Kuzma. So if you just want to spit some knowledge there.
Yeah, so actually with the if-then, we mentioned how if Aldridge plays, he becomes a top option, and Aldridge is playing. And then if Kemba's out, then Tatum becomes a top option. So Kemba is out, so Tatum's a top option. So those two are, I guess, my top two overall options now, as we said in the if-then. If you need to pay down, because I know Tatum at least Tatum isn't cheap. If you do have to pay down, we do love Crowder, mostly because of his matchup. He's going up against the worst power forward defense in the league. And then Tucker is just, I mean, he pissed off a lot of people on Monday. I think he didn't even have like 5 fantasy points. But like when he was in this role last season, he was scoring probably like 20, I think I said 22 fantasy points per game, which would be great for his price. But again, I mean, these two plays are kind of taking a backseat to the if-then section as of right now. So, I mean, if you could fit Aldridge and Tatum, that's the ideal duo.
Definitely, yeah. What's up, Leon? What's up, John? Glad you all are here. John says, any news on Oladipo? Have we talked much about Oladipo, Garrett?
We talked about him a little bit in the if-then section. There's no news on whether or not he'll be playing yet. We assume that will come out sometime before lock, with I believe the game going off at 8 o'clock. I believe. Let me double check.
7:30, but the slate starts at 7:30, so it's
So we should get that news before the slate locks.
Okay. Nice. That's always good to get news before the slate locks until they do the game actually doesn't start until
they do like late scratches and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Gets a COVID result mid-game and comes out after the first possession, which would not.
It comes back in and then gets taken out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just play hopscotch while we're at it. Cool. So we just have a couple more minutes left. So if we have any more questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, go ahead and post it in the chat. Boyle, I'll kick it off to you. Is there any last words or thoughts you want to say about the slate?
Just there's basically 2 injury situations we're keeping an eye out for that are left. The Rockets and John Collins. Let me just double check when Collins plays. He's 7:32, so we're gonna have all the news before the slate kicks off, which is good news. Yeah, just keep an eye on that, and you'll be good.
Awesome. Any other things that you want to add to that, Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna update the plug after we get off about Jeremy Grant. So that will be updated around 6 o'clock, and don't like divert too far away from the ownership tonight, especially in low risk. I mean, these Spurs guys are going to be high on for a reason. The model shows that, and so you don't want to just move away from it completely. Because that can really screw you. A lot of these guys have 10 times ceiling potential tonight, and you just don't want to miss out on that. So I'd get at least a few of those guys in your lineup in low risk and high risk.
Yeah, that's definitely something that you can do. Cool. Yeah, and as we see in chat here, again, you can use our lineup builder to create optimal lineups. Maybe next stream, we can actually bring up the builder. Maybe we can talk about some settings we'd like to run for next time. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so definitely next time we'll bring up the builder. But that'll pretty much do it for tonight's stream. Again, we have the Discord. If you have any more questions, I know Boyle and Garrett are always chopping it up over there. Hit us up on Twitter, all that good stuff. So until next time, Moose, Garrett, and Boyle from Occupy Fantasy, have a good one.